Welcome to Mystery Tales channel. I'm your host, Elias Thorne. If you're joining us for the first time, settle in with a cup of tea, or perhaps a glass of fine Croatian wine, whatever helps you unwind. Today, we're diving into a brand new original mystery in the timeless style of Agatha Christie. It's called Murder in the Cellars of Diocletian's Palace, a Hercule Poirot Mystery. Picture the sun-drenched shores of the Adriatic, ancient Roman stones whispering secrets, and our beloved Belgian detective, Hercule Poirot, using his little grey cells to unravel an impossible crime. This is a long one, perfect for those cozy evenings or long drives. Over 90 minutes of pure, relaxing intrigue. Chapter 1. Arrival in Split. The Adriatic Sea sparkled like a sheet of sapphires under the midday sun, its waves whispering secrets to the ancient walls of Diocletian's palace. Hercule Poirot, that meticulous Belgian detective with his impeccably tailored suit and perfectly symmetrical mustache, stood at the rail of a gleaming steamer as it glided toward the harbor of Split, Croatia. The year was 1935, and Poirot had come seeking respite. Mon ami, he had told his old friend Captain Hastings before departing London, the fog and bustle of England tire the soul. The little grey cells, they demand the clarity of sea air and the grandeur of history. And what history awaited him? Diocletian's palace, built in the 4th century by the Roman Emperor Diocletian as his retirement haven, was no mere ruin. It was a living fortress, its vast limestone walls embracing half of Split's old town. Narrow streets wound through its heart, alive with the chatter of vendors, the clink of wine glasses in open-air cafes, and the laughter of children darting between Roman arches. As the steamer docked, Poirot's sharp eyes took in the palace's southern facade, where the sea kissed the stone. The bronze gate, a modest yet imposing archway, caught his attention, a portal leading directly from the harbor into the palace's subterranean cellars. Magnifique, he murmured, adjusting his straw hat against the Mediterranean glare. These cellars, he had read, were the palace's hidden soul, vast, barrel-vaulted substructures that once supported, hinting at riddles unsolved. He checked in, his room a blend of modern elegance and ancient charm. Marble floors, heavy velvet curtains, and a balcony where the sea breeze carried the scent of jasmine. That afternoon, Poirot settled in the hotel's terrace café, a vantage point for observing the eclectic cast of characters drawn to the palace like moths to a flame. Over a cup of black coffee, served precisely as he liked it, strong and unadorned, he watched the guests, his mind cataloguing details as naturally as breathing. The human drama, he knew, was the true architecture of any mystery. First, there was Sir Reginald Hawthorne, a portly British archaeologist in his 50s, his bushy beard streaked with grey and his eyes alight with the fervour of discovery. He wore a tweed jacket despite the heat, his voice booming across the terrace as he spoke of his excavation in the cellars. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, noticing the detective, "you've chosen a splendid time to visit. The substructures below are a labyrinth, vaulted chambers, some sealed since Diocletian's day. I have permission from the local authorities to dig, and I'm certain we'll uncover treasures. Gold, perhaps, or the Emperor's lost scrolls." His enthusiasm was infectious, but Poirot sensed obsession. A man who valued relics over relationships. At Sir Reginald's side sat Lady Evelyn Hawthorne, his wife, a striking woman in her early 40s, with high cheekbones and a cool, appraising gaze. Her silk dress shimmered in the sunlight, but her expression was one of practiced boredom. She fanned herself languidly, her eyes drifting to the younger waiters with a flicker of interest. "Really, Reginald," she sighed, "must you go on about dusty vaults? I came for the sea, not your endless digging." Whispers among the staff suggested a marriage strained by years of neglect, with Lady Evelyn's desires tethered to her husband's wealth, and perhaps his demise. Poirot noted her restless hands, the way her fingers twisted her wedding ring. Nearby stood Dr. Victor Krasic, a lean Croatian historian and local guide, his dark eyes intense and a faint scar tracing his cheek. A relic, he claimed, of a youthful adventure. Glasses up her nose. Sir Reginald takes the credit, but my research pinpointed the sealed chambers. Her deference to her employer seemed strained, her eyes flashing with frustration when he dismissed her contributions. Ambition, Poirot knew, could be a dangerous spark. Then, there was Signore Luigi Moretti, an Italian art collector with silver hair and a smile too smooth to trust. He lounged in a linen suit, sipping an aperitif, his eyes gleaming with calculation. "The palace is a gold mine," he confided to Poirot, his accent rich with Tuscan warmth. "Artifacts from Diocletian's era fetch fortunes on the market. Sir Reginald thinks he'll outwit me, but I have my ways." Poirot recognized the type, a man who dealt in shadows, likely no stranger to the black market. His rivalry with Sir Reginald was clear, but how far would he go to claim a prize? Finally, Madame Olga Petrovich, the hotel's proprietress, presided over the terrace like a general. A robust widow in her 60s, her grey hair pulled into a tight bun, she moved with the authority of one who had inherited the imperial through sheer will. "This hotel is my life's blood," she told Poirot, her voice firm but warm. "But that Englishman's digging shakes the foundations, cracks in my walls, dust in my guests' rooms." Her conflict with Sir Reginald was public, her complaints to the authorities ongoing. Yet her intimate knowledge of the palaces, every corner, including its cellars, made her a figure to watch. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting golden light across the peristyle, Poirot strolled through the palace grounds. The air was thick with the scent of lavender and salt, and the Cathedral of St. Domnius, once Diocletian's mausoleum, rang its bells, a haunting reminder of the site's layered history, Roman grandeur, Christian sanctity, and centuries of survival. The palace felt alive, its stones humming with stories. Poirot paused by the bronze gate, peering into the cool darkness of the cellar entrance. A faint echo carried from below, a drip of water, and the curtain was about to rise on a drama most foul. Chapter 2. Whispers of the Past. As the sun dipped below the Adriatic horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and violet, Hercule Poirot stood in the peristyle of Diocletian's palace, the heart of this ancient fortress. The courtyard's towering columns gleamed under the first lanterns of evening, their limestone surfaces worn smooth by centuries of wind and touch. The granite sphinx, silent and enigmatic, seemed to watch him, its eyes carved for an Egyptian pharaoh, yet now guarding a Roman emperor's legacy. The air carried the mingled scents of jasmine from nearby gardens and salt from the sea. But there was something else, a faint undercurrent of damp stone, rising from the cellars below. Poirot adjusted his tie, his sharp eyes catching the flicker of movement near the bronze gate, the arched portal that led to the palace's subterranean depths. The past, he mused, it speaks, if one listens with care. That evening, Sir Reginald Hawthorne, the boisterous archaeologist, gathered his unlikely entourage for a private tour of the cellars. "Come, come," he boomed, his beard quivering with excitement. "You must see the wonders beneath our feet. Monsieur Poirot, you'll join us, surely? A man of your intellect will appreciate the history." Poirot, ever polite, inclined his head. "But of course, Sir Reginald. The little gray cells, they are curious for such marvels. In truth, he sensed the undercurrents among the group, tensions as palpable as the sea breeze, and wished to observe them in this shadowed setting. The party assembled at the bronze gate, Sir Reginald leading with a lantern, Lady Evelyn Hawthorne, his restless wife, her silk shawl trailing like a ghost, Dr. Victor Krasik, the local historian, his scar catching the light as he frowned, Miss Clara Beaumont, the ambitious assistant, clutching her notebook, Signore Luigi Moretti, the suave art collector, his smile too sharp, and Madame Olga Petrovich, the hotel proprietress, who insisted on accompanying them to ensure no damage befell her. Faint graffiti etched into a wall, medieval crosses and names scratched by refugees fleeing invaders. They hid here from Mongols, from Ottomans. To dig for gold is to disturb their rest. His words carried a warning, and Poirot noted the clench of his fist. Was it heritage, or something deeper that stirred such passion? Lady Evelyn shivered, her shawl slipping slightly. It's positively Gothic down here, like a crypt. Must we linger, Reginald? Her tone was petulant, but her eyes darted to the shadows, as if seeking something, or someone. Poirot observed her glance toward Moretti, who smirked and offered his arm. "Fear not, Signora," he said smoothly. "The cellars hold beauty, not ghosts." His charm was calculated, and Poirot wondered if his interest in Lady Evelyn was mere flirtation or a play for advantage. Miss Beaumont, meanwhile, was absorbed in her work, sketching a corridor that branched into darkness. "This passage leads to a sealed chamber," she said, her voice eager. "I cross-referenced Roman texts. There could be a vault untouched since the 4th century. Sir Reginald waved her off. Yes, Clara, but I'll announce the findings." Her lips tightened, and Poirot caught the flash of resentment in her eyes. Ambition, he knew, could fester into something dangerous. Madame Petrovich, lantern in hand, grumbled as they passed crates of wine stored for her hotel. "You're digging, Sir Reginald, it shakes my foundations. Dust everywhere, cracks in my walls. One more tremor and I'll have the authorities shut you down." Her practicality masked a deeper stake. Her hotel depended on the palace's allure, and disruptions threatened her livelihood. Poirot noted her familiarity with the cellar's layout, her steps sure even in the dim light. They reached a heavy iron-reinforced door, recently unearthed by Sir Reginald's team. It guarded a small vaulted chamber, its entrance sealed until days ago. "A Roman lock mechanism," Sir Reginald explained, prying it open with a key. Inside, the air was stale, the walls adorned with faded mosaics, fish and vines, hinting at lost opulence. A rusted dagger lay among pottery shards, its blade etched with faint Latin script. "This could be a treasurer's vault." Streets above. Sounds distorted here. A footstep could seem near, yet come from afar, and the drip of water mimicked whispers. He noticed a small vent high in the sealed chamber's wall, barely wide enough for a hand. "Curio," he murmured, filing it away. The palace, he sensed, was a puzzle as intricate as the human heart. That night, dinner in the Imperial Hotel's dining room was a study in tension. The room glowed with candlelight, its frescoed walls depicting Roman feasts. But the mood was far from festive. Sir Reginald held court, promising a discovery to rival Pompeii, a golden artifact, he hinted, that would cement his legacy. Lady Evelyn sipped her wine, her smile brittle as she leaned toward Moretti, who whispered something that made her laugh. Miss Beaumont, seated beside Poirot, confided her frustration. "I found that chamber, but hell claimed the glory. Years of my work." Her ambition burned bright, but so did her resentment. Dr. Krasik ate little, his eyes fixed on Sir Reginald. "You dig too deep," he said at last, standing abruptly. "The palace keeps its secrets for a reason." He left,
his footsteps echoing down the hall. Madame Petrovitch, serving a tray of local cheeses, muttered about the cost of repairs from the excavations. "My hotel suffers for his folly," she told Poirot. Her hands knotted with worry. Poirot observed it all, his mind weaving a tapestry of motives. Lady Evelyn's flirtations suggested a marriage on the brink. Did she dream of freedom through wealth? Miss Beaumont's ambition chafed against her mentor's ego. Dr. Crassich's reverence for the past bordered on obsession. Moretti's greed was thinly veiled, and Madame Petrovitch's practical concerns masked a deeper stake in the palace's sanctity. Each carried a shadow, and Poirot knew shadows often hid daggers. As he retired to his room, the sea breeze stirring his curtains, a faint scream, or was it the wind, echoed from the palace depths. Poirot paused, his hand on the balcony rail. The Cellars, he thought. They whisper of more than history. Sleep eluded him, and the night felt heavy with the promise of tragedy.
The Gap among the living. Sir Reginald Hawthorne held court at the terrace's center, his tweed jacket straining against his robust frame as he gestured with a silver spoon. His beard, streaked with gray, danced as he spoke, his voice booming like a lecturer in a grand hall. "Today, we conquer the Cellars," he proclaimed, eyes alight with fervor. "That sealed chamber, my friends, it's no mere storeroom. I wager well-fined gold, perhaps a diadem or a ceremonial blade from Diocletian's court. The Royal Archaeological Society will be forced to take note." His obsession was palpable, a hunger for legacy that outshone the Croatian sun. Yet Poirot noted a tremor in his hand, a sign of nerves beneath the bluster. Was it the weight of expectation, or fear of what lay below? Lady Evelyn Hawthorne, seated beside her husband, yet as distant as the horizon, toyed with a porcelain teacup, her fingers tracing its rim with restless grace. Her auburn hair gleamed under a wide-brimmed hat, but her eyes, sharp and shadowed, betrayed sleepless nights. She sighed theatrically, pressing a hand to her brow. "Reginald, must you shout before noon? My head aches from your endless talk of dirt and stones." Her voice was velvet, but Poirot caught the edge beneath it. A woman tethered to a marriage of convenience, her desires drifting elsewhere. Leaning toward him, she lowered her tone, as if sharing a secret. "Monsieur Poirot, the palace is beautiful, yes, but it's cold comfort when one's husband prefers ruins to his wife. I married for security, but what use is wealth without warmth?" Her words hinted at a fracture, one deepened by Sir Reginald's fortune, tied to his discoveries, and the looming specter of divorce. Or, Poirot wondered, was widowhood a more tempting prospect? Miss Clara Beaumont, the young archaeologist's assistant, sat across from Poirot, her breakfast untouched as she scribbled in a leather-bound notebook. Her spectacles caught the sunlight, framing eyes bright with ambition, but clouded by frustration. She glanced up as Sir Reginald boasted, her pencil pausing. "It's my research that led us to that chamber," she said. "Then treasures. My family's stories tell of a chalice, hidden by refugees in medieval times, cursed to punish those who disturb it. You dig at your peril, Englishman." His scar, a pale crescent against his cheek, seemed to pulse with his intensity. Poirot tilted his head, intrigued. "A chalice, doctor? A romantic notion, no?" Crassick's eyes narrowed. "Romance or truth, monsieur? The palace guards its own. Foreigners like Hawthorne trample our heritage." His passion for the past was a shield, but Poirot wondered, did it mask a personal vendetta? Signore Luigi Moretti lounged with the ease of a man accustomed to luxury, his linen suit pristine despite the morning's humidity. A cigarette dangled from his fingers, its smoke curling like a question mark. All this talk of curses, he laughed, his Tuscan accent rich as aged wine. The only curse is missing a deal. If you find your gold, Sir Reginald, it'll outbid any museum, or perhaps secure it through other channels. His smile was a blade, and Poirot noted the predatory glint in his eyes. Moretti, a dealer in antiquities with ties to shadowy markets, saw the palace as a vault to plunder. His rivalry with Sir Reginald was no secret, but how far would ambition stretch in pursuit of profit? Madame Olga Petrovich, the hotel's formidable proprietress, moved among the tables with the precision of a general, her gray bun tight and her apron a badge of authority. She paused to refill Poirot's espresso, her voice low but firm. This digging of his, it's madness. Dust chokes my cellars, cracks spider through my walls. One more disruption, and he'll have the mayor himself halted. This hotel is my life, Monsieur Poirot, built on the palace's bones. I won't see it crumble. Her hands, rough from years of work, trembled slightly. Her stake was practical, her livelihood, but her intimate knowledge of the palace's every corner hinted at deeper ties. Could resentment, Poirot mused, forge a darker intent? Poirot sipped his espresso, his mind a silent whirl of observations. Each guest wore their motive like a mask. Lady Evelyn's yearning for freedom, Miss Beaumont's hunger revealed its secrets sparingly. A mosaic of vines, the rusted dagger, scattered pottery. The internal bolt gleamed, a heavy iron bar, slidable only from inside, sealing the room like a tomb. Miss Beaumont sketched frantically, her excitement warring with frustration. Dr. Crassick lingered at the threshold, muttering about desecration. Lady Evelyn shivered, her scarf slipping. Moretti's fingers brushed the dagger, calculating. Madame Petrovich scanned for structural flaws, her lantern casting jagged shadows. Poirot noted a faint scuff near the bolt, dust disturbed in a curious arc, and a high vent exhaling sea air. Details his gray cells tucked away. As thunder rumbled closer, Sir Reginald insisted on staying. "Ill, catalogue alone. Lock up and join you later." The others protested faintly but retreated, the bolt's thud echoing as he sealed himself in. Poirot ascended last, his steps slow, the storm's growl vibrating the stones. From his balcony that evening, as rain began to fall, he watched the palace's lights flicker. A premonition stirred. The gathering storm was not only in the sky. Chapter 4. Echoes in the Dark. Midnight draped Diocletian's palace in a cloak of shadow, the storm's fury rattling the windows of the imperial hotel. Rain lashed the peristyle, turning its limestone tiles into mirrors that reflected flickering lanterns. Hercule Poirot, restless in his room, stood on his balcony, the sea breeze tugging at his silk pajamas. The air was electric, charged with the storm's wrath and something darker, a premonition that had kept sleep at bay. His little gray cells, as he called them, hummed with the day's observations. Lady Evelyn's veiled discontent, Miss Beaumont's smoldering ambition, Dr. Crassick's fervent warnings, Signore Moretti's predatory charm, Madame Petrovich's fierce protectiveness. The palace, with its ancient stones and hidden cellars, seemed to pulse with secrets, waiting to spill. A scream pierced the night, sharp and raw, echoing, danced on the barrel vaults. Madame Petrovich led the way, her steps sure despite the urgency, navigating the labyrinthine corridors with the ease of one born to these stones. The group reached the sealed chamber, its iron-reinforced door shut tight, the internal bolt engaged, a slab of metal that could only be slid from within, impregnable to outside force. Poirot rapped sharply on the door, his voice calm but commanding. "Sir Reginald, are you there?" Silence answered, save for the drip of water and the storm's distant growl. He pressed his ear to the door, hearing nothing but the pulse of his own blood. Miss Beaumont clutched her notebook, her breath hitching. "He said he'd lock up and follow. He can't still be in there, can he?" Dr. Krasich's eyes narrowed, his hand tracing the medieval graffiti on the wall as if seeking answers in its scratches. Lady Evelyn shivered, her voice brittle. "This place, it's cursed, just as Victor said." Moretti raised an eyebrow, his cigarette unlit but poised. "Curses, Signora? Or carelessness?" Madame Petrovich, impatient, summoned a hotel porter who arrived with crowbars. "We must force it," she insisted, "if he's trapped." The men set to work, the iron groaning under their efforts. With a final heave, the door splintered inward, revealing a scene that froze them all. Sir Reginald Hawthorne lay sprawled on the chamber's stone floor, his tweed jacket stained crimson, the rusted Roman dagger from the previous day driven deep into his chest. His eyes stared blankly at the vaulted ceiling, his hand clutching the dagger's hilt, as if he had tried to pull it free in his final moments. Blood pooled beneath him, stark against the dust, but the room was otherwise untouched. No footprints marred the floor save his own. No signs of struggle disturbed the pottery shards or mosaic tiles. Poirot knelt, his gloved fingers hovering over the scene. "Mon Dieu," he whispered, "an impossible crime." The chamber was a fortress. No windows, no hidden exits. The walls solid limestone, the ceiling a seamless dome. The bolt, still engaged when they arrived, confirmed the door had been locked from within. How had a killer entered, struck, and vanished from a sealed tomb? The jagged stone near the door, matching Lady Evelyn's scarf from the previous day. A red herring, or a clue. Dust patterns showed a faint arc near the bolt, as if something had been dragged. A tool, or something else. Poirot's gaze returned to the high vent, barely a hand's width, exhaling a faint sea breeze. Could it play a role in this locked room puzzle? Inspector Jovanovich rounded up the suspects, their faces a gallery of shock and suspicion. Lady Evelyn gasped, her hand to her throat, but her eyes flickered with something unreadable. Grief or relief? "Reginald! Dead!" she whispered, swaying theatrically. Her marriage had been crumbling. His fortune, now hers, loomed large. Miss Beaumont paled, her notebook slipping to the floor. "This ruins everything," she muttered. Her career, tied to Sir Reginald's success, teetered on collapse. Or did she fear discovery? Dr. Krasich stared at the note, his scar twitching. "I wrote no such thing," he snapped. "Someone mocks our legends." His knowledge of the Cellars' secrets made him a suspect, or a scapegoat. Moretti's lips curled, his calm unshaken. "A pity," he said, lighting his cigarette at last. "But death changes markets, no?" His black market ties suggested darker motives. Madame Petrovich clutched her lantern, her alibi firm. She'd been locking the hotel's main doors, yet her access to hidden tunnels was undeniable. Poirot stepped back, his mind whirring. The locked room was a riddle. No exits, no signs of forced entry. Yet a man lay dead. The silk thread, the note, the clean dagger, all pieces of a puzzle, some true, some false. He addressed the group, his voice steady. "Mes amis, a crime most ingenious has occurred. The killer walked among us. But how? That is the question." Inspector Jovanovich nodded, assigning officers to guard the scene. "We'll need statements from all," he said. "No one leaves the palace until we know more." As the group dispersed, rain hammering the world above, Poirot lingered in the chamber. The vent's faint breeze stirred his thoughts, as did the scuff mark's odd arc. The storm outside raged, But within these walls, a different gate. But the crime's impossibility hung like the damp air, baffling all but Poirot, whose little grey cells were already weaving order from chaos. The suspects assembled in the hotel's dining room, its frescoed walls and chandeliers now starkly lit by morning's gloom. Lady Evelyn Hawthorne sat with a handkerchief pressed to her lips, her auburn hair dishevelled, her eyes darting between grief and calculation. Miss Clara Beaumont clutched her notebook, her spectacles fogged with nervous breath. Dr. Victor Krasich leaned against a pillar, his scar stark against his taut face. Signore Luigi Moretti lounged with a cigarette, his calm a mask that failed to hide his calculating gaze. Madame Olga Petrovich stood by the door, her apron knotted tightly, her expression a fortress of resolve. Inspector Jovanovic cleared his throat, his voice gruff. "Statements, now. No one leaves until we unravel this madness." Poirot nodded, his presence a quiet anchor. "Mes amis," he said softly, "the truth, it hides, but not forever. Let us begin." Lady Evelyn spoke first, her voice trembling but rehearsed. "I was in my room all evening, Monsieur Poirot. The maid, Anna, can confirm. She brought me tea at 10. Her fingers twisted the red silk scarf, the same shade as the thread found near the crime scene." Poirot tilted his head. "And your headache, madame? It kept you from the cellars?" She nodded, but her eyes flickered. "Reginald was consumed by his work. We argued, yes, but I loved him." Her words rang hollow, and Poirot recalled her earlier confidences. A marriage fraying, an inheritance looming. The maid's testimony, he noted, could be bought, and Lady Evelyn's composure seemed too polished for true grief. Miss Beaumont followed, her voice sharp with agitation. "I left the cellars early, frustrated. Sir Reginald dismissed my work. Again. I was in the library, cataloguing notes until midnight. Her alibi was thin. Her ambition, a glaring motive. My career depended on him," she admitted, pushing her glasses up. "Why would I kill—"
Smile, unruffled. "I was at Café Adriatic until late. Ask the barman. Jealous of Hawthorne? Certo, but murder? Too messy for a man of my finesse." His alibi was slick, but Poirot recalled a waiter's claim. Moretti had been seen near the Bronze Gate around midnight, slipping through shadows. His black market dealings suggested a motive: eliminate a rival, claim the treasures. Yet his nonchalance was too perfect, a performance that invited doubt. Madame Petrovich stood rigid, her alibi ironclad. "I locked the hotel's main doors at 11, as always. My staff saw me. His excavations cost me business, cracks in my walls, guests complaining. But I'm no killer." Her intimate knowledge of the palace's tunnels, however, was undeniable. She admitted wandering the cellars earlier, checking for damage. A footprint in the dust, matching her sturdy shoes, had been found near the chamber. Coincidence, she insisted, but Poirot's eyes narrowed. Her stake in the hotel's survival was fierce, enough to push her to extremes. Poirot paced the crime scene alone, the chamber's stone walls cold under his gloved fingers. The storm had eased, but water seeped through the high vent, pooling in the dust. He examined the clues anew. The silk thread, likely Lady Evelyn's, screamed of a plant, too obvious for a careful killer. The note, in Krasich's style but not his hand, pointed to a frame. The dagger, wiped clean save for Sir Reginald's prints, suggested deliberate staging. Why leave only the victim's mark? The scuff mark near the bolt intrigued him most, a faint arc, as if a thin object had been dragged. A tool? A string? He peered at the vent, its narrow slit barely wide enough for a breath of air. Could it be the key to the locked room? A hotel waiter, summoned by Jovanovic, added a twist. "I saw Signore Moretti near the Bronze Gate at midnight," he whispered. "He looked furtive, slipping into an alley." Moretti's cafe alibi wavered. Poirot confronted him, his voice mild but piercing. "You deal in shadows, signore. Did you seek to steal Sir Reginald's find?" Moretti laughed, but his fingers twitched. "A stroll
With age, but a search of the chamber revealed no such door. Another red herring, or a misinterpretation?" Krasik's insistence on the curse grew fervent, almost theatrical. Madame Petrovic's footprint was explained. Shed checked the cellars for flooding during the storm. Yet her knowledge of a service tunnel branching near the chamber raised questions. "It's too narrow for a man," she said, but Poirot's eyes gleamed. Narrow, perhaps, but not impossible. As the morning waned, Poirot gathered the suspects in the peristyle, rain still falling in a gentle curtain. "Each of you," he said, his voice a velvet blade, "has a motive, yet your alibis waver like shadows in this storm. The silk thread, the note, the glove, these are pieces of a puzzle, some true, some false. The locked room hides its secret, but Hercule Poirot will find it." The group dispersed, their faces etched with fear and defiance. Alone, Poirot returned to the chamber, the vents whisper taunting him. The scuff mark, the clean dagger, the impossible bolt, they danced in his mind. "The killer," he murmured, "is clever, but not cleverer than Poirot." The palace's stones seemed to agree, their echoes carrying a promise of truth yet to come. Chapter 6. Deeper into the Labyrinth. The rain had softened to a drizzle by midday, leaving Diocletian's palace cloaked in a shimmering mist that clung to its ancient stones. The peristyle, with its towering columns and silent sphinx, glistened under a hesitant sun, but the air remained heavy with the weight of unsolved murder. Hercule Poirot, his suit immaculate despite the damp, stood alone at the Bronze Gate, the portal to the cellars where Sir Reginald Hawthorne met his end. The impossible crime, a man stabbed in a chamber bolted from within, with no trace of entry or exit, gnawed at his mind. His little gray cells, as he called them, demanded solitude to untangle the web of clues. The silk thread, the forged note, the scuffed dust, the glove, the vents whisper. "The palace," he murmured, adjusting his hat. "It is a labyrinth, oui, but every puzzle most ingenious," he whispered. "But the solution, it is here." His exploration took him deeper, past the chamber into branching corridors. The cellars were a maze, their passages twisting into dead ends or climbing to hidden exits in split streets above. He found a bricked-up window in the cryptoporticus, a long gallery once open to the sea, now sealed with Roman precision. He pressed the bricks, solid, immovable. No exit there. But a narrow grate, half hidden by crates, caught his eye. Its bars rusted but passable. It led to a service tunnel, barely wide enough for a child, snaking toward the harbor. Madame Petrovich had mentioned it, dismissing its use, but Poirot's mind sparked. Too narrow for a man, perhaps, he mused, but for a tool or a trick. He marked its location, a potential piece of the locked room's riddle. Back in the hotel, Poirot summoned Inspector Jovanovic to review new findings. The inspector, his mustache bristling, produced a fresh clue, a fragment of ink-stained paper found in a cellar corridor matching the hotel's stationery. The ink was fresh, identical to the forged note in Sir Reginald's pocket. "It came from your desk, Madame Petrovich," Jovanovic said, his tone accusatory. The proprietress bristled, her hands nodding. "My desk is public. Guests use it daily. Anyone could have taken it."
Her alibi held, but her proximity to the evidence tightened suspicion. Poirot noted her defensive posture. Fear or defiance? A twist emerged from Miss Beaumont. Under Poirot's gentle but relentless questioning, she crumbled, her voice breaking. I was close to Sir Reginald, she confessed, tears welling. Not just his assistant, an affair. Brief, foolish. He promised me credit, but he lied. I was angry, yes, but I didn't kill him. Her revelation shifted the motive. Jealousy, not just ambition. Yet her sketches of the chamber's lock, found in her room, showed intimate knowledge of its mechanism. I studied it for research, she insisted, but Poirot's eyes gleamed. Could she have devised a way to manipulate?
His fingers betrayed a tremor. His black market ties, whispered among split stealers, suggested a man unafraid of bending laws. Or lives. Lady Evelyn's cracked alibi deepened the mystery. The maid's confession, that Evelyn left her room after 10, was corroborated by a porter who saw her near the peristyle, cloaked in shadow. I needed air, she repeated, her voice sharp. The storm, the palace, it suffocated me. But the silk thread, matching her scarf, lingered in Poirot's mind. You were near the cellars, madame? He asked. She paled, stammering. No, never. Her denial rang false, and Poirot noted her trembling hands. A new complication arose. The storm's flooding had seeped into the cellars, washing away some evidence but revealing a hidden grate beneath the chamber's floor, partially dislodged. It led to the same service tunnel Poirot had found, its bars loose enough to shift. A child's passage, Jovanovich scoffed, but Poirot knelt, his lantern illuminating rusted iron and a faint scratch, recent, as if metal had grazed stone. Not for a body, he murmured, but for a device, perhaps. The tunnel's exit near the harbour suggested a route, but its narrowness baffled him. He tested the bolt again, sliding it with effort. A string through the vent, pulled to lock the door from outside, seemed plausible, but how was it done without trace? Poirot gathered the suspects in the dining room, their faces etched with unease. Mes amis, he said, his voice a velvet blade. The labyrinth of this crime grows deeper. A thread, a note, a glove, a footprint. Each points a footprint. Each points, yet misleads. The killer is among us, their method cunning, but Hercule Poirot sees through shadows. Lady Evelyn clutched her scarf. Miss Beaumont's eyes darted. Krasic's jaw tightened. Moretti's cigarette wavered. Petrovich's hands stilled. Suspicion coiled tighter, each alibi fraying like rope in the storm. Alone again, Poirot stood in the peristyle, the Sphinx watching impassively. The vent, the grate, the scuff mark, they whispered of a solution, but not yet. Breadcrumbs leading astray. Poirot's little grey cells hummed, sensing the killer's cunning just beyond his grasp. Inspector Jovanovich, his face etched with fatigue, joined Poirot in the hotel's library, a quiet room lined with leather-bound tomes and flickering oil lamps. We've searched the cellars again, he said, spreading a map of the substructures across a table. No hidden doors, no secret passages. Except that narrow tunnel you found, Monsieur Poirot. Too tight for a man, but we're digging deeper. Poirot nodded, his fingers tracing the map's lines. The service tunnel, revealed by the storm's flooding, nagged at him. Its scratched grate suggested use, but how? He recalled the scuff mark by the chamber's bolt, an arc hinting at a pulled cord. The method, he murmured. It is mechanical. Precise. The killer is no brute, but an artist. Poirot summoned the suspects for fresh interrogations, this time in the hotel's dining room,
its frescoed walls dim under overcast skies. Lady Evelyn Hawthorne entered first, her posture regal, but her eyes shadowed with unease. "I've told you, Monsieur Poirot," she said, clutching her scarf. "I wandered the peristyle for air, nothing more. That thread, it must have caught earlier." Her denial was firm, but Poirot pressed gently. "Madame, your maid saw you leave after 10, and the porter places you near the bronze gate. Why hide this?" Her lips trembled, and a new confession slipped out. "Reginald planned to divorce me," she whispered. "He said I'd get nothing, his fortune tied to his fines. I was desperate, yes, but not a murderess." Her motive sharpened. Inheritance, not just freedom, but her fear seemed genuine. Poirot noted a faint ink stain on her cuff, matching the hotel's stationery. A coincidence, or another false trail? Miss Clara Beaumont followed, her spectacles glinting with nervous energy. Her affair with Sir Reginald, revealed earlier, hung heavy. "I loved him, foolishly," she admitted, her voice cracking. "But he was going to dismiss me, replace me with a male scholar. My career was at stake." Her sketches of the chamber's lock found
Myth, perhaps, Crassage conceded, but his eyes darted. Was he deflecting or genuinely misled? "The note's ink," Poirot confirmed, "came from the hotel desk, accessible to all. Another red herring, designed to frame him?" Signore Luigi Moretti sauntered in, his cigarette smoke curling like a smirk. His alibi, Café Adriatic until late, had collapsed, the barman's testimony placing him near the bronze gate at midnight. A business errand, Moretti insisted, producing a second receipt. This one creased, but dated correctly. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "You deal in antiquities, signore. Sir Reginald's find, a golden relic perhaps, would fetch a fortune on your markets. Did you act to secure it?" Moretti laughed, but his fingers twitched. A new clue emerged. A local dealer, questioned by Jovanovic, claimed Moretti had inquired about fencing a Roman blade days before the murder. Coincidence or premeditation? His charm masked a predator's heart, and Poirot marked him as dangerous. Madame Olga Petrovich, last to be questioned, stood with arms crossed, her grey bun tight as her resolve. Her footprint in the cellar dust was explained, checking for flood damage, but a new discovery tightened the net. A key, found in a service tunnel, matched the hotel's master set. "It's for maintenance," she protested. "Lost weeks ago. Anyone could have taken it." Her knowledge of the palace's underbelly was unmatched. Her motive, protecting her hotel's legacy, fierce. Yet her eyes held a flicker of fear. Poirot recalled the scratched grate in the tunnel. "You know these passages, madame," he said. "Could one reach the chamber?" She shook her head, but her hands trembled. A lie or mere pressure? Poirot returned to the cellars, lantern in hand, to test a theory. The chamber's bolt, heavy and internal, mocked him, but the scuff mark, curved, deliberate, suggested a string or wire, perhaps threaded through the vent. He climbed a crate to inspect the slit, finding a faint snag of coarse thread, not silk, but hemp, like a fisherman's cord. A breakthrough or another key? A poison? Each tells a story. But which is the lie? Hercule Poirot will know. Lady Evelyn's scarf tightened in her grip. Miss Beaumont's glasses slipped. Krajic's scar twitched. Moretti's cigarette faltered. Petrovich's eyes darted. The labyrinth was closing, but the exit remained shrouded. Alone, Poirot stood by the bronze gate, the sea's whisper mingling with the cellar's echoes. "The truth," he said softly, "it is near, but it plays a game of shadows." The palace seemed to nod.
its stones holding their breath for the revelation to come. Chapter 8. The Turning Point. The mist over Diocletian's palace hung like a shroud, softening the peristyle's ancient columns and lending the granite sphinx an air of quiet menace. Hercule Poirot stood beneath its gaze, his overcoat damp from the morning's drizzle, his mustache a perfect arc despite the chaos of the investigation. The locked-room murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne, stabbed in a sealed cellar chamber, the bolt engaged from within, remained a puzzle of maddening precision. Clues had multiplied like shadows. The silk thread from Lady Evelyn's scarf, the forged note mimicking Dr. Croix's hand, Miss Beaumont's glove, Madame Petrovich's footprint, Signore Moretti's faltering alibi, the hemp cord snag in the vent, the scratched grate in the service tunnel, the belladonna on the dagger's hilt. Each was a thread in a tapestry of deceit. But Poirot's little gray cells sensed a pattern emerging, a truth poised to break free. Inspector Jovanovic, his face lined with exhaustion, met Poirot in the hotel's library, where maps of the cellars lay spread across a table, their edges curling in the damp air. "We've found something new," the inspector said, producing a small vial of ink from the hotel's front desk, its label matching the forged note's sharp black hue. This was hidden in a drawer, half empty. Someone used it recently. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The desk, accessible to guests and staff, pointed to Madame Petrovich's domain, but also to opportunity for all. A deliberate choice, Poirot murmured, to frame or to distract.
With nervous breath, clutched her notebook as if it were a lifeline. Her affair with Sir Reginald, and his threat to dismiss her, cast a long shadow. A new discovery tightened the net. A pencil sketch, tucked in her room, depicted a string threaded through a vent, a crude diagram of a lock manipulation. "It's theoretical," she cried, her voice cracking. "I was studying Roman mechanisms." Poirot's gaze was unyielding. "Mademoiselle, your knowledge is precise, too precise, perhaps." Her tears welled, but a faint smudge of hemp dust on her sleeve, matching the vent snag, hinted at more than scholarship. Was she the artist of this crime, or another pawn? Dr. Victor Krasich entered with a scowl, his satchel heavy with family journals. The forged note, mimicking his hand, still stung, but he offered a new revelation. A local historian had seen Sir Reginald arguing with a shadowy figure near the harbor, days before the murder. "Not me," Krasich insisted, his scar twitching. "But someone wanted his treasures, perhaps Moretti." His tale of the cursed chalice grew more fervent, almost theatrical, and Poirot wondered if it masked a deeper grudge. A search of his room uncovered a vial of belladonna, hidden in a drawer. For medicinal tea, he claimed, but its presence on the dagger's hilt was damning. A red herring or a slip? Signore Luigi Moretti's charm faltered under scrutiny. His second receipt, meant to bolster his alibi, was debunked by a cafe waiter who admitted being bribed. "A misunderstanding," Moretti said smoothly, but his eyes flickered. A new lead emerged, a coded telegram, intercepted by Jovanovic, linked Moretti to a black market buyer expecting a Roman relic post-murder. "Business, not blood," he protested. But Poirot's voice cut through. "You were seen at the Bronze Gate, Signore. What did you seek?" Moretti's smile tightened, his cigarette trembling. His greed was clear, but was it deadly? Madame Olga Petrovich stood defiant, her grey bonnet a crown of resolve. The master key, found in the service tunnel, was hers, but she claimed it stolen. A new clue surfaced. A guest reported hearing her argue with Sir Reginald days prior. Chalice, matching Krasich's family ring. A clue? Or another deception? Poirot panted, handing it to Jovanovic. The chase, brief but pulse-pounding, broke the investigation's rhythm, sharpening Poirot's focus. The button pointed to Croatia, but its placement felt staged, too convenient. Like the note. Back in the chamber, Poirot re-examined the vent. The hemp thread snag, coarse and recent, suggested a string pulled to lock the bolt from outside, a theory gaining weight. The grate in the service tunnel, scratched and loose, hinted at a tool's passage, not a body's. The belladonna, a false trail, seemed designed to suggest suicide, but the stab wound's force ruled it out. Poirot's mind whirred. The killer had entered with Sir Reginald, struck, then used a string through the vent to seal the room, retrieving it via the tunnel. But who had such precision? In the peristyle, Poirot faced the suspects, the Sphinx looming behind. "Mes amis," he said, his voice a quiet thunder, "the trails multiply. Ink, buttons, poison. But the truth draws near. The killer's hand is steady, but not invisible." Lady Evelyn's lips parted. Miss Beaumont's hands shook. Croacha's scar pulsed. Moretti's cigarette fell. Petrovich's gaze hardened. The turning point had arrived, and the labyrinth's exit glimmered. Chapter 9. The net tightens. The morning sun struggled through the mist enveloping Diocletian's palace, casting a pale glow over the peristyle's ancient columns. The granite Sphinx, its eyes weathered by centuries, seemed to watch Hercule Poirot as he stood in the courtyard, his overcoat damp, but his demeanor unruffled. The locked-room murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne, stabbed in a sealed cellar chamber, the bolt slid from within, remained a puzzle of exquisite cunning. Clues had multiplied like ripples on the Adriatic, the silk thread from Lady Evelyn's scarf, the forged note mimicking Dr. Croacha's curse, Miss Beaumont's glove, Madame Petrovich's footprint, Signora Moretti's broken alibi, the hemp cord in the vent, the scratched grate, the belladonna on the dagger. Sky, the chandeliers casting a cold glow on their tense faces. Lady Evelyn Hawthorne sat with her hands clasped, her scarf replaced by a high-collared dress, her eyes flickering with unease. "I've nothing more to say," she declared, but her voice wavered. Poirot held up the ledger page. "Madame, your husband paid someone for access. Were you that contact?" She gasped, her denial sharp. "Ridiculous! I wanted his money, not his death." Yet a new clue emerged. A hotel maid, trembling, admitted seeing Lady Evelyn slip a note under Sir Reginald's door days before. A note she never mentioned. "A private matter," Evelyn stammered, but the ink stain on her cuff, matching the forged note, tightened the net. Was her desperation a motive or a distraction? Miss Clara Beaumont entered, her spectacles slipping, her notebook clutched like a shield. Her affair with Sir Reginald and his threat to dismiss her hung heavy. But a new revelation shook her composure. Jovanovich produced a hidden letter found in her room from a rival archaeologist offering her a position if she sabotaged Sir Reginald's dig. "I refused," she cried, tears streaking her face. "I loved him, despite everything." Her lock sketches, however, suggested more. A diagram showed a string threaded through a vent, weighted to pull the bolt. "Pure theory," she insisted. But the hemp dust on her sleeve, matching the vent's snag, painted a damning picture. Poirot's voice was gentle but firm. "Mademoiselle, your knowledge is your strength, and your danger." Her ambition, laced with betrayal, teetered on the edge of guilt. Dr. Victor Krasich strode in, his scar stark against his pale face, his satchel bulging with journals. The silver button, etched with a chalice, pointed to him, but he scoffed. "A plant. My family's ring is safe in my room." Yet a new lead surfaced. A local fisherman claimed Krasich had asked about the service tunnel's harbor exit days before the murder. "For research," Krasich snapped, but his eyes darted.
Poirot probed the belladonna vial found in his room. "A family remedy," he repeated.
A villain? Madame Olga Petrovich stood rigid, her apron starched, her eyes defiant. The master key and her footprint tied her to the cellars, but a new discovery tightened suspicion. A hotel log showed ordered extra rope, coarse, hempen, days before the murder. For repairs, she insisted, but the callus on her hand, noted earlier, suggested handling it. Poirot's voice was soft. "Madame, you know the tunnel's secrets. Did you use them?" Her face hardened. "My hotel is my life. I'd never risk it with murder." Yet a guest reported hearing her in the cellars late that night, muttering about ending the chaos. Her alibi wavered, her knowledge a double-edged sword. The investigation took a dramatic turn that afternoon. A clatter echoed from the cellars, and Poirot, with Jovanovic, rushed to the service tunnel. A trap door, hidden under crates, led to a cramped passage, an old drainage shaft, its walls scratched as if by recent use. At its end, near the harbour, they found a discarded weight, a small iron hook tied to a hemp cord. Poirot's heart quickened. "The mechanism," he whispered. "The hook could have been threaded through the vent, pulling the boat shut from outside, then retrieved via the tunnel. But the cord was gone, and the hook bore no fingerprints, a meticulous killer's work. The discovery sparked a chase. A figure, cloaked, swift, fled through the palace streets, weaving past vendors and Roman arches. Poirot, lantern swinging, pursued with Jovanovic, their shouts lost in the market's din. The figure vanished near the harbour, leaving a torn scrap of cloth, red silk, like Lady Evelyn's scarf. Pause, return to slow pacing. Poirot panted, clutching the scrap. Another plant? Or truth at last? He mused. The chase, though fruitless, sharpened the puzzle. The killer was close, desperate to cover their tracks. Back in the chamber, Poirot tested his theory. The vent, the hook, the bolt scuff mark, they aligned. But the absence of the cord frustrated him. The belladonna, a red herring, suggested a staged suicide. The note, a frame, a maestro before his finale. The suspects encircled him, their faces etched with tension. Lady Evelyn Hawthorne, her auburn hair catching the light, her eyes wary. Miss Clara Beaumont, clutching her notebook, her spectacles fogged with dread. Dr. Victor Krasich, his scar stark against his clenched jaw. Signore Luigi Moretti, his cigarette smoke curling like a question mark. Madame Olga Petrovich, her apron a shield, her gaze resolute. Inspector Jovanovic stood beside Poirot, his notebook open, his officers poised at the courtyard's edges. The Adriatic sparkled beyond, its calm a stark contrast to the storm of revelation about to break. Poirot raised a gloved hand, his voice resonant yet soft, carrying the weight of truth. "Mes amis," he began, his Belgian accent weaving through the words like a melody. "We have journeyed through a labyrinth of stone and deceit. Sir Reginald Hawthorne, that fervent seeker of treasures, met his end in a cellar chamber sealed tighter than a Roman vault. Stabbed with an ancient dagger, the door bolted from within. No trace of entry or exit. An impossible crime, you thought, but Hercule Poirot declares, there is no impossibility when the little gray cells align." He paced slowly, his eyes locking with each suspect in turn. "Let us weave the threads together, for clarity is the soul of justice. Sir Reginald's death stirred motives as deep as these ancient walls. Madame Hawthorne, your marriage crumbled, an inheritance dangled by a thread of divorce. Mademoiselle Beaumont, your ambition thwarted by a mentor's theft, your heart bruised by a secret affair. Dr. Krasich, your family's heritage defiled, a curse invoked as warning. Signore Moretti, your greed for relics, a rival's death your gain. Madame Petrovich, your hotel's foundations shaken, your legacy at stake. Each of you bore a shadow, and the clues, they multiplied like echoes. Poirot paused, the suspect's breaths catching. The silk thread from Madame's scarf caught near the door. The forged note in Sir Reginald's pocket, proclaiming a curse. Mademoiselle's end tied to the bolt's ring. The other weighted with an iron hook. Pulled from outside, the bolt slid shut. The cord, retrieved via the service tunnel's loose grate, scratched by the hook's passage, then burned or cast into the sea. The chamber sealed, the killer a ghost. Gasps rippled through the group. Lady Evelyn's hand clutched her throat. Beaumont's notebook trembled. Krasich muttered in Croatian. Moretti's cigarette fell unlit. Petrovich's eyes widened. Poirot's voice softened, but his resolve was iron. Who crafted this masterpiece? The clues accused all, yet each was too perfect, a frame. Madame Hawthorne's silk thread? Planted, torn from her scarf in the hotel. The forged note, mimicking Doctor's hand, but written with ink from Madame Petrovich's desk, open to all. The glove? Mademoiselle's, but lost days prior. The footprint, Madame Petrovich's, from her cellar checks. Signor's telegram, business, not murder. The belladonna, a chemist's trick, dusted post-mortem to suggest despair. The ledger's payments, to Mademoiselle, but for honest work, not betrayal. The silver button, Doctor's, but slipped from another's pocket. He stopped before Miss Clara Beaumont, his eyes gentle but unyielding. Mademoiselle Beaumont, it is you. Your brilliance, your sketches of the lock, born of study, twisted to crime. Sir Reginald, your mentor, lover once, betrayed you. He claimed your discovery, the chamber itself, as his own, threatened to dismiss you. Your ambition, your heart, could bear no more. That night you entered with him, the dagger gleaming in the lantern's light. Rage struck, the blade found its mark. You devised the cord trick, threading it through the vent, pulling the bolt shut, retrieving it via the grate. The hook, discarded at the harbor, the cord burned, its ashes scattered. But you faltered, the hemp dust on your sleeve, the glove dropped in panic, the chalk mark by the vent, your teaching tool betraying your hand. The note, forged to frame Dr. Krasich, the thread to accuse Madame Hawthorne, the footprint.
He walked to the bronze gate, the cellars below silent, their secrets laid bare. The Adriatic gleamed, Diocletian's legacy enduring. The Sphinx watched, its riddle solved.